Welcome to the Beautiful Step Podcast,
where we
run,
stomp,
tiptoe,
and tango into the confusing
but beautiful
world of togetherness. We are your hosts, Kris
and Charity.
Now, let's go make our together even better. So I've often thought about the phenomenon that happens when you think you're here, but you're really back here.
Yeah.
That idea of, why do I have a bike in the garage that I just don't ride anymore?
Yeah.
Why is there that instrument in the attic that I'm not getting around to playing?
Yeah. Everybody's got the, what do you call those? Eclipsers or what? Elliptical machines that are basically just clothes hanging.
Yeah. The elliptical doesn't get any time on it. The treadmill, we've bought and sold, I don't know how many treadmills, but there's that phenomenon in life where you're like, why am I not executing this? Why am I not following through with this?
Yeah.
And I think that as I work this out, and you've watched me try to work this out, and you have a certain strategy on how to do these types of things, but it usually boils down to, I need some sort of accountability.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I need something, it's almost like a reason to do it maybe.
Yeah. It's kind of like you have to build a system of accountability or something just to hold yourself to it.
Right. You have to hold yourself to it. You need some accountability. Right. And what happens in that, when I start thinking that way, is I'm kind of wanting someone to like smack me on the hands or something, or like, pull my chain or whatever. I want them to intervene.
Yes. Yeah. Like when you mean like an accountability partner or something?
Yeah, accountability partner, or somebody to be like, I need a drill sergeant. Like, get up and get,
Yeah.
It's that same thing of like, if you want your kid to play the piano, you can see the sort of mommy dearest thing happening where she's smacking the kid on the, get it right, this kind of thing. And so there's this intervention that is holding you accountable all the time.
Yeah. You either put it there in place because you need it, or somebody else puts it there.
Or I'm thinking to myself, if I want to hold someone accountable, I better go tell them what's up, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or I need to, be, it boils down to some sort of intervention, right?
Yeah. It's like an evaluation. I view accountability as kind of like the evaluation of if you're actually doing something, or the standard that you've set in place to hold yourself to.
Right. It's like that, that you're feeling responsible to perform. You're feeling responsible to do this certain thing, but you need that intervention to get it going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I have noticed is that it doesn't work.
Accountability in general?
Yeah. In an intervention way. Accountability in like that intervening it's like momentary. It produces like a momentary.
It's a
thing.
short term.
It's a
fix.
Catalyst. Yeah. It's like, it's kind of the reason why the bike is still in the garage. Because like, you're going to be, if someone comes over and smacks me around and like, you got to get, your lazy rear end on that bike, I might do that until, if it's Monday, I might do it 3 or 4 times until Saturday or whatever, but it's going to go back in.
Yeah.
Right. And that's it, because accountability isn't, that kind of accountability is not sustainable.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable for my psyche, and it's not sustainable for someone who I'm hoping will just come and intervene. And here's the problem and the reason why I started to sort this out is because we had been involved in such a culture of accountability.
Yeah.
In that we were professional Christians, we had a lot of work in a church that we did.
The term they used for it, the term we used for it, right, was discipleship.
Right? Discipleship is this idea. Well, it all started kind of back at this Promise Keepers thing when I was young. I was just getting into Christianity, just getting into the church, and they came out with this Promise Keepers idea where the underlying theme, which is still really heavy in the church right now, is the idea if you don't have an accountability partner,
right,
then you're just going to fail miserably.
Yes.
And what that looks like is a person who's going to call you on your stuff, who's going, you're going to go and you're going to say all these things to, your deepest, darkest secrets and that kind of stuff. And just by nature of having that accountability partner, you'll be clean, or you'll remain holy, or
Yeah.
So it's this.
You'll not do everything that you're not supposed to do. It's kind of the same principle of a sponsor in AA, right?
Exactly. And and that culture is permeating a lot of American constructs. Sure. Because you have the mentorship idea, right? Mm-hmm. You have big brothers, big sisters,
right?
And there are so many different studies out there about what this intervention, accountability through intervention culture produces and what it looks like. And what I'm saying and what I've learned, and I will like die on this hill, is that it doesn't work. It does not work in the way that we think it's going to.
So you're saying it's not that accountability itself doesn't work, but this idea that intervention is the way to do it
doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
It does not work. It works for a moment.
Okay.
But the problem with it is like those cultures get the intervention part right, but what they're not getting right is the inspiration part of it. So here's the idea. They have this thing where it's like, take discipleship, for instance. You have, or an accountability partner, right? Within a church construct. You have a young guy who comes in and he's like all ready to rock and roll and he wants to be this super Christian or whatever. And they put him with this guy who is supposed to be his accountability partner, or he meets this person who's supposed to be his accountability partner, yet he shares nothing in common with this person. He doesn't really look up to this person. This person has all these different types of interests, right? But by nature that they're sort of Christians, you're thinking this would work because accountability is the thing that we're rallying around, right?
Yeah, even if they, I always found that it was amazing because people would end up playing that role in your life that you didn't even really know. Like, not really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so what happens is you end up having this sort of relationship with this person who you don't really respect. You're not really going to be honest with that person. And even if you are honest, it doesn't matter, right? Because it's not like you're super close. It's not like you want to be like this person, right? It's not like there are no real consequences. So the hard part is it's not truly accountability, and it's not truly going to bring about change in your life, right? Until you get the inspiration piece right. And I'm just going to throw this out.
Okay.
Accountability, the very highest form of accountability, is not intervention. The highest form of accountability is inspiration.
Yeah, I love it.
And here's the reason why I say that is because let me just qualify that in a secular way too, because you have big brothers, big sisters, right? And this is I love the heart behind this.
Yeah.
And what they do is they pair up, and they're getting better at this, but they pair up a sort of older young adult with a kid. And there was this longitudinal study on the East Coast in Somerville, which is kind of in the Boston area. And they did, I think it was over 100 different mentor relationships where there was a mentor who was paired with, I guess you would call it an at-risk kid.
Yeah. I mean, anyone can sign up to be a bit little is what they call it.
But in this particular
okay.
study, it was, at risk or,
sure.
marginalized kids or whatever, didn't have a dad and this kind of thing. And so they have all of these outcomes that they would love to accomplish. Sure. The kid would be successful. He'd be well-adjusted. He'd be socially, inept and all of these kinds of things, or adept.
Adept, yeah.
I'm sorry. And what happened and they went back and they got the data back out. They were able to contact a lot of these kids, and they realized that really the mentorship program was ineffective in any of the outcomes that they wanted to bring about. The kids were still, a lot of them were in jail. A lot of them, had been divorced, married, there was no real difference. It just wasn't sustainable.
So when they compared it to maybe a control group, the outcomes weren't that different from those who were mentored and those who weren't mentored?
Exactly.
Got it. Okay.
And the idea was that, all they were really trying to do was say something like, well, if you have someone that's a couple steps ahead of you or something, or maybe they were doing it by, age and all of these things. And so the pairing just did not quite work right because the figure that was in that child's life was not inspiring.
Wow.
So
to that particular child, it wasn't that they weren't inspiring as a person, but to that particular child, maybe the pair wasn't inspiring.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's the thing. That's the thing that I noticed within the church. You have this overwhelming push for everyone to be discipling someone.
And by discipling, we mean, for those people who are not kind of from Christian culture, is that's basically you kind of bringing somebody along in the Christian faith. Like you
secularly, it's mentorship.
Yeah. Secular is mentorship. In the Christian world, it would be called discipleship.
Right. And I have many things I could say about that whole idea. But again, what these cultures get right is they get the intervention part of it right, but they don't get the inspiration part of it right. And it works like this. You have a young guy who wants to play the guitar. He sees like, oh man, it'd be cool. I could be a rock star, this kind of thing. I want to play the guitar. And so he starts to play the guitar and that kind of stuff. Well, you start to notice, you know what? He's not playing the guitar as much, right? And so you go over to the kid and you smack his hands, or you tell him, hey, you told me you want to be a guitar player. So, you really kind of got to get your act together, and you're thinking you're holding this kid accountable.
Or you sign him up for, if you're his mom, you're signing him up for guitar lessons and are like, I'm paying money for this, do it.
You're going to do it. You're just going to you're going to grind away and you're going to do this kind of thing. And what I've noticed is that does work for a minute, but there's only so many interventions a person can have in their life. Mm-hmm. And there's only so many times that intervention is really going to work. What really is going to work for that kid is if he goes to a concert and he sees, Steve Vai or Joe Satriani or some of these crazy guitar players whom he wants to be like. And the first thing he does when he goes home is he plays his guitar.
Yeah.
And the reason why he's playing his guitar isn't so much that on one hand, he wants to be like that person. But on the other hand, he starts to realize he's being accused as the person is playing, because he's like, holy crap, I haven't practiced. Yeah. I haven't done anything. I've been sitting around. And he gets an instant, whoa, he's charged and found guilty just through the vehicle of inspiration, rather than someone like coming at that kid and, right, this is what you're not, this is what you're not.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say inspiration truly is the highest form of accountability, in that it is the most sustainable. Because the more that kid goes to those concerts, the more he's going to realize, these are the things that I need to do. These are the things that I'm not doing. Mm-hmm. This is what I want to become. I already know that. If it didn't matter, I wouldn't care. I do. Therefore, and so you're doing this.
Yeah.
It's holding him accountable. Someone who is absolutely great in his life will, by nature, hold that kid accountable. And that was the thing with me in the church that I had a hard time with, is it's hard to find men who are inspiring often.
Wow.
It's like, why is this person's whose life is a wreck telling me anything about what I should do next? Thank you. I appreciate the fact that I can learn from your lessons, but that's a momentary, weird little intervention thing that doesn't really matter in my life.
Yeah.
I need to be inspired, because that really does hold me accountable for all of the gifts and intentions in my life to really come out.
Yeah.
It's like I'm sorry, I'm going to keep going just for a second. It's like you have, let's just say, I'll keep with the young guitar player kid, right? So let's just say he does realize I need to stay inspired. And he becomes this great guitar player, right? And he leaves his small town of guitar players, and he goes and he plays, tours with Radiohead, or, maybe it's whatever, the Eagles back then, or
Sure,
Ozzy or something,
sure.
right? And then he comes back home.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody hates him.
Well, at least half the town. Yeah.
Yeah, see, part of the town hates him. Because what happens in this structure is that those guys are going to look at him and they're going to say, just by the success that he has, it's accusing me of what I haven't done.
Yeah.
It's telling me that I've been sitting on my ass and I could have done what he did, but I didn't. And so they're intimidated.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is you have some people who will react that way, like
Right.
half the town might, there's actually a scripture about this, right? Like a prophet isn't honored in their own town.
Right.
Because you've got this element at play, this very real thing
Yes.
of like people who have in their heart to want to do what the person is doing.
Yes.
They will be envious or intimidated.
Sure.
Or then there's the other people who didn't want to do what the other person did. And they're usually the people that are champions. Like, oh my God, so proud of you. Like, thanks for making us proud. They're doing that stuff. So
Yes.
you can clearly tell usually the dynamics of who has actually wanted to do that in some way.
Right.
And then who just realized that wasn't their thing at all. And they're just happy that the other person did it.
It's so funny. Yes, you're absolutely nailing it. Absolutely nailing it. And here's the reason why what you're saying is so crystal clear in my mind, is because what happens oftentimes is the very people that you're supposed to be inspired by, you're intimidated by.
Yeah.
So you tend to reject them. And that's the thing that I would say oftentimes would happen even in, church settings or, those types of settings. It's like, man, the people who really do inspire you and have something to say and help you, you're intimidated by.
Yeah.
And so you're feeling all of this, here's what I haven't done, but it can't be my fault.
Yes.
So I'm going to put the blame on somebody else. You know what? And it comes with this sort of envious, intimidated, attitude.
Yeah.
When all that is just a signpost that you really care, right? It's a signpost that like you should be inspired.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
In that Wanting book about mimetic desire, which we did a podcast on a few weeks ago, he talks about how the way we respond to other people being great and us wanting to be like them changes with how close we are to that person.
Ooh, yes, yes.
So we might look at a really famous person, I might look at Oprah and say like, man, she's a badass. Like that's so inspiring. Like what an inspiring figure. That's a safe person for me to want to be like and want to emulate and be inspired by. It's safe.
Why?
I can easily put it out there as like, I want to be that because there's no way I'm going to be like Oprah. She's in a different category, right?
I don't know. I think you're.
But
okay. I hear you. I totally hear you. Yes.
But I'm not going to easily say that about somebody that I know from my town who's doing something I want to do because it's so close that all of a sudden it's not as inspiring in my mind, even though it should be.
Right.
I'm just kind of jealous and envious that they're doing it and I'm not, because that's an attainable goal.
I love it.
So as soon as it's like out of the attainable category in your mind, you can celebrate. And when it comes really close to you, close in proximity, you're like, ooh, now I have a different, feeling about that.
I love it. Yeah. It's that thing. I truly believe that intimidation is an indication of fear, a deep mindset of just, I'm wondering if I have what it takes. It's lack.
Yeah.
It's something that you can change your mind about.
Yes.
You can literally change your mind. You can be, oh, I'm feeling envious or intimidated. And so I don't feel like that anymore. I really don't. It's hard to intimidate me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's always been kind of hard to intimidate you. But.
Yes, but it is especially hard now. And it's especially hard for me to get to a place where I'm really envying, something someone has. Because I have a tool, like a literal tool. When I hear those things, when I hear myself talk, do any of that has any sort of smell or sound of that, I know that all that is a signpost that this person has something to offer me. For some reason, I am feeling either intimidated or envious, which is an indication that maybe I want something they have, or I should be in a place where they are, which is an indication for me, I better get my shit together.
Yeah. And just a sidebar, in parallel with that, it's not it's the proximity thing. You envy them more as they're closer to you.
Sure.
But it's also, you're only envying people that are doing things you want. I'm not envying or intimidated by people that are doing things that I have no interest in doing. I'm just like, hey, good on you.
Sure.
But if it's something I want to do, again, what you're saying is it's accusing me and telling me that I wanted to do that thing and I should just wise up and do it. Can I show?
It's literally holding you accountable for the gifts that are in you.
Yes.
It's that, and that's what I'm saying. It is an intervention. It's just an intervention that you're not noticing. It's like a self-intervention, which is why I love this idea that inspiration truly is the highest form of accountability. And when I'm saying high or low, what I mean is the longest sustainable outcomes that you think accountability should provide.
Yes.
That is, inspiration is the best vehicle, the highest form of that.
Yeah. So if we're looking, I actually made graphics. Do you like it?
I love you.
Accountability is like a system that you put in place of power over you.
Okay, so say that again. Wait. Because you're right. We should probably stop and define accountability. Say it again.
Accountability is a system. In our definition,
yes,
it's a system that you put in place, whether it be a person or actions, a system you put in place to actually provide power over you when you need something to have authority over you.
I love it. Okay, can I do just a quick comparison? Because there's a such thing as submission. Mm-hmm. Like you and I have mutual submission. I submit to you, you submit to me, which is very close to an accountability dynamic, but it's not.
And by submit, you mean?
What I mean by submit, and this is the distinction, is that I am, by definition, submission is just opening your will to the will of another. Mm-hmm. So you're saying, and it's like this concentric circle. So your will, my will. And in that center, that, concentric circle right there where it meets, that's where our sort of collected will comes through. Sure. That's why submission is so beautiful, because you have this, life that you're creating together. You have all this discovery.
You're sharing power.
You're sharing power, where accountability is not like that. Right? Accountability is a thing where you're going like, I need to put some things in place so that I can live up to my responsibilities.
Yes.
The things that I know I have to do, the gifts that are in me, the responsibilities that I have as a dad or, a husband or guitar player, that is accountability.
Yes. Right? It's an intentional system of power over.
Power over. I love it.
And that could look like what you're saying, inspiration, in the sense that like, you're kind of putting yourself under the inspirational figure.
Absolutely.
To say like,
you're like, teach me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love, Tony Robbins says, if you want to be great, if you want to do something great, just find the person who's doing what you want to do and copy them. That's all you know, advice. Like you don't need to do anything besides that. Like follow them around on social media or whatever, but just copy them. Sure. And then you'll know how to be great like they are in that category.
And what is that exactly? That is you letting that person have power over you. And the hard part with power is that there's such a negative connotation, but people don't understand that power is neutral. Let's do a podcast on that later. But it's not negative to have power over you. You have to have that.
No, and accountability systems are often something you've I've put in place, you've put in place.
Yes.
It's not someone else doing it to you necessarily, and most of the time not. It's something you are submitting yourself to for the greater good of what you're trying to do.
Right, and that's the part where when you have an illegitimate accountability partner, what you're doing is you're fronting. You're saying, hey, ask me the hard questions. And you're, there's this thing of like, you're giving that person power over you, yet you're everything that comes out of your mouth is horse feathers, right? Like you're not actually you're going like, you ask me the hard questions, yet I'm not actually going to answer, So it doesn't, so in that dynamic, it's not really power over. It's like a form of power over without any sort of effectiveness. Sorry, I just had to say that.
No, I mean, I could go on and on about how kind of toxic that is.
The fake accountability situation. It happens in marriages a lot too. It happens in lots of different relationships where a person is like, I'm just fronting that I'm giving you power over me, but really I'm holding all the cards.
Yeah.
That's like, ooh.
I'm just going to pretend like I'm being honest about it or whatever dangerous. Else. Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm sorry.
So we've been talking about how important it is to have this framework as when we're talking about relationships, accountability comes into play a lot because you might be asking me as your partner to hold you accountable for something. I might be asking you. We might be wanting to set up systems for our children about accountability for ourselves. Like, okay, let's work on a budget. Like these are all measures of accountability.
Sure.
Like discipline things or chores or budgets or any of that kind of stuff are accountability systems you can put in place. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to relationships, we use accountability all the time. Or if we're in a larger construct, like a religious, group, or we're a part of a club, or we're within a school, you'll find accountability systems everywhere.
Everywhere. Hey, look, I mean, every business has to be held accountable by the IRS.
Yeah.
Power over, baby.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of accountability systems. So again, not bad, good. They're just different.
Structures.
And what you need to do is be able to evaluate them. So we kind of came up with a system for evaluating accountability. And
I like our system.
Yes, it's come out of that frustration you're talking about let's quit calling it good when it sucks. Let's quit saying that it works when it doesn't.
Let's identify the markers here. Let's identify how we could improve this system to truly be an accountability system.
Yeah. So I'm going to go through it with my little graphs. Do you like it?
I love it.
Okay. I feel like I'm back at teaching Sunday school.
But this is it. Let's go flannel graph.
Okay.
Okay.
So you have a desire, like what you're talking about. Like I see something and I'm like, ooh, I want to be that.
I can't help but want to be that.
Yes. Like I have this thing that I'm aiming at. I want to be able to say that about myself.
Right. You have a thing that you want to like be, right? Or like, so for instance, like accountability typically is a responsibility that you have to keep, right? Like, so there's that. So you do have to have a desire to show up in that responsibility.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it just starts with me saying like, I would love to have a talk show like that. That would be so fun to do, if I'm using the Oprah comparison or something, And what ends up happening is immediately our human nature, the gut level of who we are every time, will take it two directions usually. We will not go to inspiration.
We don't typically, no.
Here's what we'll do. We'll immediately start envying.
If we have a desire and we see a figure who is ahead of us 10, 50 steps.
Somebody's doing it.
And our first reaction typically is envy.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now and the other thing that we could do, like we mentioned, the rock star coming home. The other thing that we'll do besides envy and then just kind of talk trash is we'll be intimidated.
Right.
Okay. What I want to bring up about these two options is that they're scapegoats.
Talk to me about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
As a person, I don't really want to be held accountable as to why I'm not reaching that. I don't really even recognize. My first gut instinct isn't to recognize necessarily that I have a desire for that. It's just something inside of me is like, all of a sudden I'll feel envious, or all of a sudden I'll feel jealous, or all of a sudden I'll feel intimidated, right?
And it just shows up.
It just shows up.
It comes online and you're like, what is this?
It'll be the natural first reaction.
Sure.
Here's what I want to say about that.
Yeah.
What you're trying to do is make it someone else's responsibility that you're in the position you're in.
Oh.
That's why we go to that. Because naturally, we don't want to admit that we're not doing the hard work.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about with accountability.
We want
just that figure is holding you accountable.
Yes.
I love it.
But we want somebody to blame for that. If that figure is holding us accountable through inspiration, we want somebody else to blame for why that isn't the case.
Couldn't be me.
Here's what we do.
That's so funny.
We blame, here's what envy does.
Okay, go.
It blames the reason you're not that way on some outside bad character, some motive, some sin. I'm not going to call it me not doing what I was supposed to do to meet that. I'm going to say that it's a sin and therefore I can dismiss it.
Oh, wow.
I can say like, I shouldn't be envying. Well, that lets me off the hook.
So therefore, I don't really have to live up to the responsibility that I
shouldn't be envying. I can kind of dismiss it. Again, these are the initial responses. I need something else to blame for this. I need something else to let me off the hook.
Okay.
Relieve the pressure.
Okay. This is crazy because I think that everyone has that reaction when you see someone great do something so good. You're just like, why even try? I don't even want to try playing guitar anymore. This guy's so good. That's the initial thing. And you kind of laugh it off between friends or whatever, and then you get back to work. But that's weird how that comes online really quick. You're just like, I just want to quit because they're so good.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a funny way of saying like, this is kind of human nature.
Yes.
To sort of blame it on something else.
You might give up.
Wow.
And just say like, I don't have what it takes because of all these other reasons you spout off in your head.
Wow.
Or you say, I'm just going to say that it's a bad thing that I want that. And therefore that lets me off the hook too.
Oh.
Okay. Now, the other thing you could do, and what people will often do is they'll say, I'm really intimidated, especially when it's a person who's very inspiring. They'll have this reaction and say, well, I'm just intimidated. Therefore, something must be wrong with the person if I feel intimidated.
Oh,
let me
wow.
use an example. And again, this is just to let yourself off the
You're
hook.
saying that this is looking for a flaw in the inspirational figure.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because otherwise it's just you. That's the reason you're not here.
Crazy.
That's the reason you're not here.
So when you're sitting there talking trash, you realize, oh, you're talking trash because you're just intimidated. Come on.
Totally.
Oh,
but this happens.
on.
I can't even, and I think I've said this before on the podcast, but I can't even count how many women in my life over the years, particularly when I was younger. I'm a strong person. I have a strong personality. I'm a pretty ambitious person. How many women have come to me and their first thing that they say to me, or once they get to know me, is they say, I'm really intimidated by you, or I was really intimidated by you. Okay. Can I do a public service announcement? That is such chicken shit. Because here's the deal. What you just did in doing that, what she just did when coming to me and saying, you intimidate me, is try to put the responsibility for what she wants to do on me.
Something broken about you.
Like, now, what am I supposed to do if I intimidate you? That's not my problem.
So you're going like, maybe I should be softer.
What can I do?
Maybe I shouldn't be so successful. Maybe I shouldn't be so strong. Wow.
It puts it on somebody else instead of just saying, I shouldn't be intimidated. I should be inspired by this person. Why am I intimidated? If I'm intimidated, that's on me. It's not on the person intimidating me. Come on. Right?
Yes.
But we do one of these two things,
wow.
And you added quit too. And I think that that's another thing that we do is we just like kind of moralize it and say like, okay, we can't do it. Or we say, there's somebody else responsible for this. And I want to take the pressure off myself. I really want to take the pressure off myself as to why I'm not being the inspirational thing. Okay.
Do you get intimidated?
Yeah.
Really?
Sure. I mean, I think everybody does, but I absolutely do. If there's something that I see in someone that I'm like, damn, that's really impressive.
How quick do you go from intimidation to inspiration?
Pretty fast, because I have the tool, but also because I recognize that like I'm an empowered person. I can, if I need to get here and there's something in me that desires it, it means that I can actually reach it. I wouldn't desire it if it wasn't possible for me. I don't desire things that are impossible for me. No one does. Not really. If I actually think that there's a chance in hell I can get there, I pretty quickly want to turn it around to like, I better get my stuff together.
This is inspiration.
This is inspiration.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, there's a whole different vibe when you go up to someone who you admire and you say something like, the first time I saw you, you intimidated me. Why wouldn't you just change that language a tiny bit and say, hey, the first time I saw you, I was so inspired by you.
I love that.
Like, just high five them.
Well, actually, what it gives you is it gives you an in with the person, but it also like provides a path forward.
Absolutely.
You take one of these and you don't quickly turn it around, you're never going to get to inspiration. You're never going to get to the goal, the desire that you actually want.
Right.
You're just going to like stay stuck. And if that's your thing, hey, go for it. But like,
yeah, what's also kind of coming on as I'm staring at that too is like nobody really wants to be held accountable. So we'll turn it into envy or intimidation or whatever. Now I'm off the hook. Let's just But
again, like as we started this, let's quit calling it something it's not.
Right.
Let's just be honest. Let's have a real come to Jesus moment and say like,
right.
It's not because it's a sin. It's because you didn't have what it takes.
That's the thing is I'm intimidated because it is so revealing.
Yeah.
I am intimidated because I would rather not look at this about myself right now. And every time I'm in the presence of this person, it comes online for me and I'm like, it accuses me. And that's the reason why I just love this idea of inspiration. Really is. You have to see it as such a beautiful form of accountability that it's an intervention in a way, but it's not an intervention in a way that is like smacking you on the hands.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I
look at this.
Made a little graph, right? Okay. So this is what we've been talking about, right? If you have accountability as the system of power over you that's in place, or that's what you want to be in place.
Yeah, you got to get on board with that first.
Yeah.
And if you don't think you ever need to be held accountable by anything, turn off the podcast. Do something
totally
else.
Pointless.
Yeah,
as far as effectiveness, this is on a continuum, right? As far as effectiveness, the type of accountability that works and is most effective, the lowest level of accountability, the least effective measure of accountability or process or model of accountability.
Yes.
Is intervention.
It's literally the least effective and the least sustainable form of accountability.
And we're going to show exactly why that is.
It is so often the only form we know.
I know.
The only form we use.
Oh, there's shows about it, have an intervention. Okay, but
and I'm not saying it doesn't ever work. What I'm saying is it's way overused for the outcomes that we want.
Yes, it is the least effective.
Yes.
I think that we could just look at it on a continuum. We're not saying it never works. We're saying it's the least effective tool.
Yes.
The highest, like the most effective tool is inspiration,
Absolutely.
as you pointed out before.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, so the continuum is the effectiveness, right?
Right.
Okay. So what I did here was I just said there's basically 5 components that make accountability work.
5 components.
5 components. So when you're talking about why isn't that system I set up in my life working for me? And why isn't the system that I see in other people's life working for them? Or what is working about how that's really working?
Right.
They're showing up every day to the gym. Why is that?
Yeah.
Okay, here's why.
Why?
There's 5 different things that are necessary to make it the most effective that it can be. Okay, the first one is desirability. I feel so silly holding these.
No, I love it. I love it.
Okay.
Do you want to start? Because I have some things to say too. Well, the thing about desirability that is the first thing I think about is the person who I want to mentor me, the person I want to disciple me, the person I want to sort of, hold me accountable.
Inspire me.
They have to be inspiring.
Yes.
And that's the problem with the Somerville, the Somerville longitudinal study, the pairing was one of the things that they realized, didn't work. Because what if you have this young man who just wants to, knock a baseball out of the park, is paired with some, thin set computer programmer / hair stylist. Right. And it's like, wait, not gonna work. Just because that person doesn't truly inspire the other person.
Yeah. So the desirability. You're saying is I have to it has to be there. I have to want to be that person or do what they're doing. There needs to be the desirability factor.
Babe Ruth shows up. is going to hold that kid accountable for every gift and desire in him.
Yes. Here's the other side of this, because each of these kind of has a flip side.
Yeah.
As the person who's wanting something, wanting to become something,
Yes.
desirability has to be present.
Yes.
Oftentimes in intervention cultures where we think we're just going to intervene, you know what's missing and why it fails?
I can guess.
The desirability is not there.
Say more.
The person that you're intervening on, the person that you want to hold accountable, they did not ask you to hold them accountable.
Wow.
They did not want to stop using drugs.
They don't really want to.
They don't really want to stop hoarding. They don't really want to go to school every day and do their homework. They didn't really want to do these things. So as soon as you remove desirability from a party, you can't desire for somebody else. And hello, we all know that interventions where someone is not interested do not work. Yeah. You could say all day long, this is hurting me, this is hurting me, until they decide that that it's hurting them.
I love it. Yep.
They will have no desire to move forward, which will mean it's
and you can't assume. You can't assume someone's desire.
Yes.
You can't assume that, well, you know what? The only thing they really want, and then fill in the blank. The only thing they really wanted, but no. They're stuck on something else right now.
Yes.
And they don't have any desire really
for
what you think you need to intervene on. So it's twofold. One, you have, an uninspiring character. And then maybe the problem could be, it's that the person just doesn't have the desire.
Yeah.
So yes, desirability. I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
I think
it has to be, that's like square one.
Yeah. But we see this often so I do a lot of child welfare policy stuff.
Okay.
Well, we'll say, okay, this is a dynamic that occurs a lot. We've got this great way to serve families. We're going to intervene and put this out there in a community. And then the community is like, yeah, we didn't want to do it that way.
Yeah.
That's not in our culture. We didn't want to do it that way. So you assumed that was going to be our desire. And that was not our desire. And so therefore things fail. And you're like, well, duh. Of course it's not going to work. But, we become such savior-minded people.
Sure.
Especially in intervention cultures where it's really steeped in religious communities. You go, well, I'm going to assume lots of structures, education. I'm going to assume that child really wants to get good grades. I'm going to assume, well, maybe they don't actually. Maybe they could care less.
Yeah, it's that whole, there's so many different cultures that this intervention culture is just really not working for.
Yeah.
And it's not just church. You're right. It's like any of these programs with even government programs or any of those kinds of things where they just assume that an intervention is the highest form that, it's like, no.
Yeah. I'm going to assume you want to lose weight and look like me. I'm going to assume, and it's like, no, actually, I didn't. I like the way I am, and I didn't want to do that, and all of those kind of things. So desirability has to be there.
Right.
So when you're creating things for yourself, you really have to ask yourself, how much of this is just me, admiring that and thinking, that's awesome.
Right.
How cool is it that they're pursuing their dreams? And how much of it is a true desire?
Right.
And then are the people you're working with really desiring that, or did you decide and assume that they were desiring that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. The second component you have to have is intimacy. Do you want to talk about intimacy?
But here's the thing about an intervention is you have to put it in your mind for an intervention to be effective. You have to put it in your mind as one of the most intimate acts in human nature.
Yeah.
It's up there with sex. I'm not kidding, because you have this incredibly vulnerable situation that could go either way.
Yeah. You mean when somebody's confronting you?
When someone's confronting you or someone's intervening on you, that's a very intimate thing.
Yeah.
Even if you are pointing out flaws and deficits in another person, as trivial or fleeting as you might think that is, it's not. Ever heard the sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me? Bullshit. Like words are the most powerful thing that we possess. And so when you're going to do any kind of an intervention or hold someone accountable for the thing that they're not doing, you better be very aware of the fact that it's an intimate thing. It's a very, very intimate thing. You are sharing an intimate moment. I can't say it enough.
Yes. Because you're talking about something really, that needs to occur or that you see as needs to occur. And honestly, you can't hear those things from somebody that you're not intimate with. And you really only are valuing the people's opinion that you are intimate with.
Yes.
You have to be willing to own this relationship for me to care that you want to intervene.
Absolutely.
I had this when I was a kid growing up. I had, I was so self-righteous and altruistic, but I remember going to my youth pastor and saying I need to confront this girl on what she's doing. And I never remember, he knew this about me. So I remember he looked at me and he was like, you need to go and pray about it for a week and stuff. And then you can decide if maybe you should do that.
He said something about 3 days of fasting.
Yeah, you need to not eat for 3 days.
Take off your shoes at the west corner of this thing in the sand
pit. He didn't say that, but yeah.
And look out to the, I'm just kidding.
He was basically okay, you sacrifice a whole bunch to determine if that's really something you want to do. And then maybe you should go confront her. But if you're unwilling to do that, then it probably isn't important enough to you, which means you don't have an intimate enough relationship with her, or the issue isn't as intimate to you as it needs to be for you to be intervening.
I love it. Which means your intervention will be classically ineffective.
And probably ruin your relationship.
It will be ineffective in its use, and it will not be sustainable.
Yes.
If the intimacy part, if you don't get that, if you don't understand it going in, it's going to be another futile attempt at accountability. As much as you want to hold that person accountable, tough shit.
And as much as, the flip side too is the person who's being held accountable, unless they view it as theirs, unless they've owned that, if they're intimate with the issue, they have no interest. We're talking ineffective. But it's also the reason inspiration is effective with intimacy is because there's been something that I look at, that I want, that I'm inspired by, that I have owned. And I said it earlier, I believe I could achieve it. That's me making the goal, the inspirational thing, the person intimate to me. Now all of a sudden I can relate to that. It's not inspiring and effective until I can relate to it and make it mine.
I'll tell you why inspiration is so intimate. It's because anytime you give someone power over you, that is so vulnerable.
Yes.
And even if you don't know that person.
Yeah. And even if they don't know that you've given them that.
It is a very intimate thing for you to say, this is power over. I am under. Teach me. That's a very, very intimate move in your heart.
Absolutely. So the most effective way within accountability requires these things right here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Accountability has to have, desirability has to have intimacy.
Yeah. The third one is urgency. You have to at some point, it's not actually going to work unless you feel like you have to start. It's not good accountability if you're I'm going to be accountable for that in 6 months.
Well, it's the age old thing, like you were saying, hey, family, let's get together and do an intervention on the black sheep, right? All right, great. We're all going to get together and you go and you realize, this person's just what they call not ready, which means bad timing.
Yeah.
Great idea, all these things. And sometimes this is effective, but if the timing is not right, if there's no sense of urgency, your accountability, your intervention won't work.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
And the other part of it too is on so I'm just going to keep going. On the inspiration part, rather than the intervention part, the way that urgency works on inspiration is that thing when you see someone at the right time, when you are poised, you are ripe. It's boom, I just found this person unlocked all of these things for me.
You could have seen them a million times before, but it doesn't matter that one time.
Or it's let's just say you know what you've been responsible for all this time and this would happen a lot, in one of our ministries for sure. You would have all of these guys out there, desperados and stuff like that. And they have this deep sense of duty and they have this deep sense of what they should be doing or whatever. But once they get into the presence of what I was doing or what we were doing, all of a sudden it was like, boom, everything came online and they were being accused just through the inspiration. There was an urgency that showed up as soon as you saw the inspiration. Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what happens too, is it's not so much that, you're sitting here waiting for an inspiring figure and then that makes you urgent. What it is a lot of times there's this dormant thing. And it's a slow hunch. It's a slow hunch. And as soon as you're inspired, a sense of urgency comes over you and you go, I got to get my stuff together. This is accusing me. I know that I could do better. I know that, boom.
Yes.
That's why urgency, it's never going to hold you accountable.
Not in and of itself.
No.
Because it has to be paired with, you did a perfect segue for me. It has to be paired with opportunity.
Ooh.
I could have an intervention all day long. I could go to people and say hey, you want to quit using drugs? Awesome. That's awesome. I sense that you have urgency.
Right.
You are owning the problem.
Yeah.
That's great. You want to get clean. But there's no rehabs around.
Yeah, go do it then. Go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, it's you have to have all of them for it to be truly effective.
Right.
You have to have an opportunity. If you wanted to be the great guitar player, you have to have in order for the accountability to work, you got to have a way to do that.
Join a band. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which speaks to oftentimes will require things of people. Maybe in those intervention cultures of we're going to serve you and then we're going to require all these things of you. But there's so many things required that there's no opportunity to actually fulfill them all.
Oh, man.
Which is, we should be looking at our accountability systems in our life. And I do this myself.
Yeah.
Where I'll say, I want to hold myself accountable for eating right, for exercising, for reading, for going to school, for working, for taking the dog on a walk, for being a better friend, for being a better parent. And that's
just front burner.
And
then you have all this other stuff. Yeah.
All those things. Then I build, have you ever done this where you build the accountability and on my phone, I'll have all these things that are okay, there's 15 things you have to do every single day. And then I'm by day 4, I'm I don't have time to do all of these 15 things.
You don't have the opportunity to do them all.
The opportunity simply isn't there. You have to kind of line it up.
I love it.
You have to line them up.
And that's what I would say because I feel like desirability and opportunity, they sort of do this, right? They're I want to, but I'm not, I'm not either creating or taking the opportunity, but I really want to do a lot of this stuff. And the thing that I've learned over the years to do with my own personality is just like you said, all right, desires, get in a line.
Yes.
Just line up, okay? You know what? During the holidays, I know I want to lose weight, but I want to be a grandpa, all right? I have, in the holidays, my opportunity to be a grandpa is going to be way higher than it is to lose weight. You know what? So I'm going to line those things up and I'm going to be the best possible grandpa. It's still there to lose weight. But
you're saying when you say I want to be a grandpa is because you're okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm there doing all the fun Christmas food stuff with my grandbabies or whatever.
Yes, we're making cookies and we're tasting them. And I know that, Emery's going to come over with something that she made and I'm going to eat every bite of it. You know what I mean? All of that stuff. So that's why I feel to truly hold me accountable for the things that I know I'm responsible for.
Yes.
Opportunity is a big deal. It can become an excuse.
It can.
But it can also just be a reality that you have to deal with.
Yeah. I want to throw in another element here because I think there are times when what we want isn't the best thing for us.
Oh, say that again. Whew.
I think of what is often a trap for a lot of young women, particularly, is that you might have a real desire. You might be inspired to be a really thin person. You love the way it looks. It's a desire for you. In the past, you might have resorted to eating disorders or things like that to get where you needed to go.
Yeah.
Or you wanted to be a really fun person, which in your mind and in the vision of it involved a lot of drinking and having fun with your friends and partying. Okay. You have these things that you did to become the person that you wanted to become, that inspiration of what you wanted to be.
Yeah.
And then something happens in your life where you're like, that I have to rein that in. I have to stop that completely. I have to do something because that has been harmful to me. What I did to get to where I was inspired to get to,
man, that's good,
was unhealthy.
Yeah.
And so you might still be in, like, it's kind of like that desire doesn't go away. For the person who is the partier who wants to stop drinking so much, the inspiration to be the really fun life of the party didn't go away necessarily, but they're going to have to line up that inspiration to something else.
Well, it changes the opportunities too.
It changes the opportunities. You have to say, like, okay, I might not be able to do that right now because I'm not in a healthy enough place to be able to go there. And if you find that actually that thing is never going to be healthy for you, if you've been an addict and you're never going to bring it in some moderation, then you need to just say, okay, the tool is remove the inspiration. Stop viewing being the life of the party as the goal, the thing you want.
Yeah.
If you really are struggling with eating disorders, then probably what needs to happen is you need to take the things that are modeling that inspiration for you out of your life. Yeah. Whether it be the social media or, but you have to change that thing you're looking to.
That's super
and remove it.
Helpful. That's super helpful. And I think that's possible.
Yes.
The hard part is you think you're going to die, but you won't. I mean, we can change.
Yeah.
People can change.
You can line it up. You can put those inspirations in the back and say, I'm going to revisit that. That one's going to be on hold for me. I'm going to put that one to sleep in like 4 years when I'm feeling a little bit healthier. And even if in that 4 years, I feel like I'm still not strong enough to really, I don't have what it is to put that in place, then just keep or eliminate it altogether. That's okay too. You don't have to desire everything all the time.
What's that? I broke up with this part of myself.
Yes, I love that.
That's so good.
Okay, the last one, number 5, is that good accountability has consequence to it. Like if you don't build in any sort of pain point, if you don't understand why you're doing it, 1, you won't start.
Right.
But 2, you won't keep doing it.
Exactly. This was the problem with so many different mentorships, discipleship dynamics that not only I was personally involved in, but I had a hand in setting up because we were always trying to pair people. We were always trying to pair our leaders with different people. Oh, this guy needs a mentor. This guy needs to be discipled. You're constantly doing this. And it's like, if you could give a crap about that relationship, it's of no consequence either way, whether you tell that person the truth or not.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter to the relationship. I don't care really what you think about me. I don't really respect who you are. So therefore, there's no real skin in this game whatsoever.
Yes. And the thing I want to point out about consequence that people often misunderstand, and I feel like that needs to be more on the forefront of our language when we talk about consequence, is consequence is neither bad nor good. Consequence is just an outcome. So when you look at it, you could have a really positive consequence.
Right.
That's in place.
Right.
Like a pleasure you receive when when you're inspired.
Sure.
You could be going for a pleasure, or you could be going to avoid pain.
Sure.
You could have a negative consequence, right?
Right.
So consequence can go either way. Some people are more inspired by pain. Some people are more inspired by pleasure to get something done. Like either way,
yes.
If the consequence, positive or negative, doesn't exist, you will not.
You're never going to put anybody in power over you.
No.
Yeah.
The accountability does not work.
And here's the reason why I think this is such an important component of accountability. Because what I honestly contend that in an intervention culture, what you're trying to do often is provide consequences, right? That really can only be met out without intervention. Does that make sense? Like this person needs to really, I mean, you can sit there and say, hey, I'm trying to intervene now so that you don't have to pay these consequences, right? So you're sort
give
of
me a practical.
For instance, you keep telling this person, if you don't practice your piano the day of the recital, you're going to make a fool of yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to be just fine. And the kid never practices your interventions. You keep on trying to work. And what you're trying to do is give that person the consequence before the consequence. You're trying to tell them this is going to hurt really bad. But until that kid gets up there and realizes, oh, I was so nervous I couldn't see. Not only that, but I didn't practice. Oh my goodness. And all I've ever wanted to be was this great pianist and stuff. And I guess I better get my act together, right? So that's the idea behind the intervention culture is you're trying to preload all these consequences that only experience can really provide. And so we're getting hung up on like, if that person fails in front of us, our intervention didn't work. Well, no shit. It didn't work because it's not the highest form of accountability.
Yes. And we're assuming, we're saying that they understand what it would be. We're saying like, okay, to somebody who hasn't faced severe consequences of addiction.
Right.
The shit hasn't hit the fan yet.
Yes.
Telling them, oh, the shit's going to hit the fan isn't going to make them do something.
No, it's not going to bring the urgency. It's not creating an opportunity.
Yes, until it hits for yourself, and you've experienced that, which is what you're saying. It's
right.
Like you're like, I can't own that.
Yep.
It's not intimate to me yet.
Yep.
It's like not my thing. And also, until you recognize that what you're going for, the consequence, the possible positive consequence is doable.
Sure.
Or you've experienced a taste of the glory. Then you're not really reaching for that because you don't know, you haven't experienced it yet.
Exactly. And that's the thing that I think is it's just so key. At 50 years old, I am so much more apt to take advice or, to listen to someone who is really trying to preload a consequence for me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Whereas it just takes a long time to have that sort of.
It comes with maturity. It comes with style of learning.
And it's like that. Thank you. I'm putting power. I'm taking that and putting you in a powerful position over me. I'm submitting to this. Thank you so much.
I love that. It's its own form of accountability as to listening to other people's experience. The last thing is basically that what this all does is that it not only does it help you gauge effectiveness, but it also helps you gauge sustainability.
Right.
Because if you have an intervention culture where the consequence might be really short and it doesn't really matter to the kid, you take away their, lollipop and they were like, I didn't care. I didn't want it anyway.
Right.
Or, the urgency is fleeting or they didn't really own it.
Right.
It's all these things make it ineffective and unsustainable.
Right.
You might have the flash in the pan.
Yeah.
But unless you're building those things up, they don't become sustainable and effective until you make sure that all these components are there.
I love it. And so here is my discovery. And it's also my proposal.
Ooh.
And it's also my contention.
Okay.
And it's also my advice.
Wow.
It goes something like this. To anyone in a relationship, especially parents, especially leaders, be the very, very best you can possibly be at whatever it is that you do. Because everybody wins. It's not selfish. You may think, I got to humble myself and, no, do not dumb it down, please. Please don't dumb it down. Please do something really, 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 really great. Because what you're going to do, what's going to happen is that is intrinsically going to hold those people who are aspiring to be like that. It's going to hold them accountable.
Yeah.
It's going to be the highest, most sustainable form of sort of accusation and intervention in that person's life.
Yeah.
And I have really begun to own that. Like, I don't want to half-ass things. I don't want to, not work really hard and surprise, my grandkids with whatever it is, or, make a great podcast or do those kinds of things and really put ourselves out there. Right.
Yeah.
Because it is, everybody wins.
Everyone wins.
So that's my, I think, starting there, rather than being like, oh, I've got to, if I'm a real mentor, then I better be mentoring someone, or, these kinds of things. And I think there's validity in all of that. I really do. But I also, I know that you're doing more than you think.
Yeah.
Just by being really, really great at what you do.
Yeah. I think what I would add to that, and I really love that, is what I'd add to it is you're not doing anyone any favors by waiting for them to catch up.
Oh, yeah. That's so good.
Because all that will happen is you'll slow down, or you'll not achieve what you wanted to do. And they'll be less inspired, which means they won't really be working on that as much. Like the codependency of other people needing to be at a certain point that you're carrying along as the inspiring person or as the mentor is a fallacy.
Right.
Just stick with being great and keep going that direction. And somebody who really is inspired and who really wants to be held accountable, they'll be along for the ride. Yeah. And those people who won't, that accusation's there for them to deal with and decide what they're going to do with it.
Absolutely. I have two more things. Ooh. One is, the other big tool is anytime you start to envy or you feel intimidated, all that is a signpost. Yes. To say, this person has something for me.
Yeah. I love that.
See that person saying to you, hey, I have something for you here. Mm-hmm. There's a few things I could help you with. Yeah. Rather than be, intimidated or whatever.
And not even just them saying that, but like, see yourself just in that desire. See what it's telling you. And the desire is telling you that you think you can do it.
And that's beautiful.
Right?
Yeah. And my last piece of advice in this intervention culture is, and I've heard this given to me and I'm going to give it away, is don't ever ask anybody to mentor you. Really. Because what you're going to do is you're going to give them a job that they don't have to do. They don't want, and they have no responsibility. They don't have to do that. Mm-hmm. They don't have to mentor you, right? Mm-hmm. Don't ever ask someone to mentor you, because you're giving them a job, mm-hmm. right?
Or disciple you, whatever you want to call it.
Don't do it. Just don't do it. What you should do is observe them, watch them, be really inspired by them. If you happen to have contact or you can have a relationship with them, get your list of questions together, be really thoughtful, and then ask them.
Yes. Ask them to answer those questions.
Ask her very specific things. Because if you go walk up to someone and go, hey, I want you to disciple me, or I want you to mentor me, or I want you to, be my sponsor. It's one of those things where it's like, whoa, all of a sudden, I'm responsible for much more than you think as your mentor.
Well, what it's doing is it's doing the same thing as dismissing it with envy or dismissing it by intimidation. You're just trying to put the responsibility on someone else. Right. If I say to you, hey, will you be my mentor? Then now the ball's in their court. Right. Come on, mentor me.
Right. And the thing I would say, though, is there is absolutely 100% a space for thankfulness and gratefulness. And there are those figures in your life, yes, where you need to say, thanks for being such an inspiration. Thank you for, thank you for mentoring me all these years and just being who you are. Like that kind of stuff, light years. I mean, that does so much for the intimacy and so much for the relationship. Mm-hmm. You can't say that enough. I mean, that's so good. But to just carte blanche walk up to someone who inspires you and be like, I want you to mentor me. It's like, I've been in that position before that you kind of want to say, as the mentor, you kind of want to say, how dare you? Like, really? Like, are you kidding me? Like, ask me a pointed question. And here we go. Let's go. I'd love to give you advice. I'd love to talk to you.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to take responsibility for your life.
Yes.
I'm not going to be your new accountability partner.
Yeah.
So
it's so good.
Yeah.
I love these tools.
Aren't
really
these great
helpful.
tools? Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the 5.
Yep.
You need all 5 of them to have really effective accountability and to have sustained accountability.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good.
Wait, babe, wait. How do we end this?
By saying thank you.
Okay, you guys are awesome. Thank you. There's nothing more encouraging than you hitting that like button and commenting.
And don't forget to subscribe.
And I know there's more. You have a list. Might as well go down the list.
Right. Okay. Watch the video of this podcast on our Beautiful Step YouTube channel or on our website where you can actually download transcripts and show notes of the episode. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
If today's episode made your together even better, tell someone.
Okay, now.
Right now.
Today.
Okay.
You can take one step.
It's just one step.
Toward the beautiful relationship you want in your life.
You got this.